Okay, my YouTube people, for my next video, I was undecided on how to start going back together, getting this bike back in one piece. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to put the oil tank back on, and then put the rear fender back on, and then the rear tire, and at least I can get it to where it rolls around. I think at that point I'll probably put the motor back in. Let's get at it. The bike being mounted like this, there's a lot of weight on the front end, and it's really wanting to teeter my jack, so I'm being extra careful. Like that. I put a few wood blocks under the front tire so the whole jack doesn't fall over. So the way the oil tank mounts back in is you put a spacer on top of here, then the oil tank mounts on top of the spacers, and then the bolts go in. Even though I've said it in every video, I'll say it again. Loctite's your friend. Even though they have lock washers, I still Loctite them. Oh yeah, baby. Now I put the bolt and the spacer on already, and I'm going to try and slip it in as one complete piece. Like that. And just put a couple threads on it, enough to hold it. Now I'll slip the spacer in on the other side and then put the bolt into it. I have this in pretty tight. It's not all the way torqued down, but I'm thinking I'm going to need a little movement when I go to put the fender in, so I'm not going to tighten it down all the way, so I can give it a little bit of adjustment as I go. So what I do in this case is I start all the bolts and nuts loose, let everything line itself up, and then tighten everything up. With the lowest fender bolt, it takes this tapered screw and nut, and also there's two more of those for the upper mount. And those upper mount ones go into this plate on the oil tank, and that's what lines it all up. Again, I'm just going to dab some Loctite on this. In case you're unaware, Loctite works with the absence of air, so it'll sit there wet forever. When you put the nut on and it kind of seals that in, that's when it dries and locks up. The Loctite bottles actually breathe, believe it or not. That's the lower bolt and nut there. The upper two go into that bracket right there. There's the lower one there and the upper two there. You see they're not bolted in yet. And there's where the bolts go on them, into that bracket there. I'm going to have to do this off camera. Now I'm going to get the battery lid hold downs in. I'm going to get the helper spring bracket in, and then get the crash bar lined up. So these kind of go in like that. These brackets go on, looks like first. One, and then the other. Now that I have those brackets in, I can put the battery lid hold down brackets on next. Yes, you guessed it. Next, some Loctite. Then the washer, lock washer and nut. Again, I'm going to leave it super loose. Now I'll do the other lower one. Now the battery bracket. Okay, I end up having these brackets backwards here because it's gapped off there real hard. So I'm going to switch it around. Now you can see they sit down on there a lot better than they did. Okay, to get this in place, I'm going to go with a longer bolt. That way I can get it started all lined up and all, and then I can come in with the right size ones. And that's how you do it without having an extra set of hands. Now I'm just going to put the one in with just the nut, and I'll go back and put the washers on it after I get the other one in. Still got to tighten this a little more so I can get the washer on over there. Now I'll take this one back off and put the washer and the lock washer back on. Alright, now that this section's all back together, I'll just tighten up the fender struts and the upper and lower fender mounts, and then I'll be done. And I'll be hoping I don't have to do that again for a while. And when I say a while, I mean like forever. Woo! Alright, got those done. Now I just got to tighten up these clamps right here and these bolts. I just noticed that I put this bracket on the inside and it goes on the outside. So I'm going to have to work that around there. But what fun. You guys saw that on the video before I did it. I wish somebody would have said something. Alright, I'm going to unbolt it here, unhinge it, and it should come right around. Oh boy, those rivets are a little loose too. Gonna have to bang those up tight or something. So I'll just hinge the fender up and hopefully be able to sneak this right around like that. No harm, no foul. Now I will tighten the fender struts back up. Although they're loose, I would have to ruin the paint on these to get them up tight, and I'm not going to do that. Alright, now the rear fender and the crash bar, the helper springs, everything's reinstalled back here. Next thing I'm going to do now is mount the rear wheel, but I'm only going to do it temporarily. I need to loosen the spokes and move the rim over to the left side about 1/4 to 1/2 inch because it's not centered quite right. And while I have it apart, I'm going to powder coat the rim since the paint that's on it is coming off. So like I said, I'm just going to put it on there. I'm not going to put the brake drum on for now. First, I cleaned up all my tools because I can't stand working with all those tools all over the floor. I took the spacer out of the brake drum and mounted it into the bike so that the wheel is properly spaced when I'm finished. But I'm going to leave the drum off. Alright, now I have the rear wheel in. The struggle was real on that. And I tightened the nut up on the axle so it doesn't slide around. Basically, it's just sitting in there and it's not going to move around.